time next week, many of you will be gathering together for Thanksgiving, but family events can come with uneasy waters to navigate. Coming up on Good Day at 9 we're actually going to talk family politics. But up now, when parents split, it can leave grandparents in limbo on the holiday. Family law attorney Monica Garcia Harms is here now to walk us through what legal rights you have to see your grandkids. Good morning. Thanks for joining us.
Good morning. Thank you for having me.
You know, on the surface, when even we were talking about this in our editorial meeting yesterday, when you say what rights do grandparents have, most of us were like, well, I don't think they have any rights because, you know, it just defers to the parents. But that's not necessarily true. There are some circumstances where they do have legal rights. What are those circumstances?
Well, you're absolutely right that grandparents do not stand on equal legal footing as parents do. There's sort of this implied assumption that fit parents make valid decisions for their children, for their children. However, there are certain circumstances in which a grandparent who has not seen a grandchild and is being denied visitation with a grandchild is allowed what's called reasonable access. It may not necessarily be the type of visitation that they want, but a court can give them the ability and right, the legal right, to visit with their grandchildren.
So what would be some factors that the court would take into account that would get a ruling in their favor?
So one really important factor would be the history and bond that the grandchild and the grandparents have. The court's going to look very closely at the parents. What decisions have the parents made? Have the parents made reasonable decisions for their children? They're going to look at the wishes of the grandchild, assuming the child is of a mature enough age, if they're able to make those wishes. And they're going to look at just sort of the total dynamic of the family. Maybe one of the parents has died, and so that might be a circumstance in which it's going to be important to maintain those familial contacts with deceased parent's family.
Is there anything specifically in Maryland law or any of D.C. or Virginia that states about grandparents and visitation rights, or grandparents and their grandkids and the right they have to them?
Yes, well, you mentioned Maryland. Maryland actually has what's called a grandparent visitation statute. There are states where grandparents can petition for visitation under a third-party visitation statute, but Maryland has it specifically for grandparents, and it allows, upon request of the court, a grandparent to seek what's this reasonable visitation. And of course, it's always under this umbrella of what's in a child's best interest. That's really the lens that a court looks at always.
Is this something, maybe this is a silly question, but that the grandparent alone can initiate, like go and get an attorney? Like the parents don't have to be involved at all? It can just be the grandparent taking it on?
Yeah, well, the petition with the court can absolutely be filed by the grandparents. You can do that through an attorney would be the way to best effectuate that. However, before anyone runs to the courthouse, it's really important for grandparents to recognize they're not on legal equal footing. And so all of those attempts to reach out, to communicate with the parents, to try to set up reasonable visitation in advance, putting those requests in writing, whether that be by text, by email, just so there's some kind of history that a grandparent can show to the court to say, look, I've tried really hard to do this without court intervention. That's where the use of an attorney can be really helpful. We hear from our clients at Stein Sperling that they just want to have the holidays and be able to see their grandparent in some capacity. And so really on the front end of any legal filing, making sure that you really try your very best to see if you can work directly with the parents, come up with some kind of schedule. And these types of cases are often settled out of court before court intervention is actually necessary.
I can imagine mediation plays a big role a lot of times. Thank you so much, Monica. Really appreciate it this morning. It's always difficult when you're dealing with emotional issues and you have to address them in a legal way. Stein Sperling is her law firm that she's with if you have questions yourself that you might like answered.
Thank you.
Thank you.